Hello everyone, and welcome to What's New in PTC Mathcad Prime 9. I'm your moderator, David J. Newman, and before we begin today's brilliant presentation by PTC Mathcad Product Manager Andrew McGough, I have some ground rules to establish. Today's webinar will last 45 minutes, featuring Andy's remarks and demos about the new functionality in Mathcad Prime 9. The remaining time will be dedicated to a live question and answer session featuring Andy and the questions that you submit into the Q&A box throughout the presentation, including now. This webcast is being recorded, and the full 45-minute replay will be available on mathcad.com following the event. All registrants will be emailed to this replay link as well. You can find on the webinar console some useful resources, such as the link to upgrade to Mathcad Prime 9 or try our 30-day trial. You will also find our useful YouTube channel of tips and tricks and our Mathcad Minute newsletter so you can stay current on our blogs and announcements, as well as the Mathcad Ideas site where you can contribute and vote on future product functionalities you want to see. We also have a small questionnaire available where your input can directly affect future Mathcad marketing content and events. And now I'm excited to give the floor to Andy McGough as he will talk about this feature-packed release of Mathcad Prime. Andy, the floor is yours.
Hi everybody, thank you for joining today for this PTC Mathcad Prime 9 launch webinar. My name is Andrew McGough and I'm Product Manager at PTC, responsible for the Mathcad product. This is the 9th release of Mathcad Prime I've been involved with and the 6th as Product Manager. Mathcad Prime has come a long way over those 9 releases, and I'd like to first quickly look at the progress we've made before looking at the functionality we've added in Prime 9. Over the past few years, we've continued a yearly release frequency in line with other PTC products. Prime 9 was released in early March 2023. Prime 10 will be released in March 2024. Prime 11 in March 2025. Focus for each release always starts with gap fill enhancements, adding functionality to Prime that legacy Mathcad users have come to rely on. This will continue to be the focus moving forward through Prime 10 and onwards. When functionality is added to Mathcad Prime, we always prioritize based on user input at the time. There is infrastructure work we need to do for each release to make sure we stay current with things like new versions of operating system, Microsoft.NET, and third-party components used in the product. But the main goal is to provide the functionality Mathcad users need to calculate and document their engineering. We listen to customer feedback, we know what you're asking for, and our job is to prioritize and implement that functionality in each release depending on that feedback. Built on the new equation control interface that makes entering math content incredibly easy in Mathcad Prime, the early versions of Prime included the most widely requested items, such as unit support, a comprehensive function library, symbolics, Excel component, math formatting, area protection, and equation wrapping. More recent versions of Prime have continued that trend with functionality like 2D plot enhancements, hyperlinks, spell check, the combo box input control, redefinition warnings, and the partial derivative operator. There may be functionality on here that you don't use as much as others, and there may be functionality not on here that you would like to see. We try to take the customer base as a whole into account when prioritizing content. If what you want to see in the product isn't in it yet, it's not because we don't know about it or don't care to put it in. We document all customer feedback and always use it as the basis for new release prioritization efforts. This doesn't mean we don't want to hear from you. On the contrary, please keep sending us feedback, as it's that feedback that helps inform our release content decision process. Mathcad Prime 9 contains updates in several areas of functionality: application updates, symbolic and numeric engine updates, and usability updates. Application updates are generally focused on the UI and productivity. And this is the area of updates which includes gap fill functionality for users of legacy Mathcad versions. We continue to expand and advance the symbolic engine in Mathcad Prime with updates and enhancements not seen in previous versions of the product. The numeric engine is core to what Mathcad does, and we keep it current with each release. Usability enhancements are updates that make using Mathcad on a day-to-day basis much easier. Application updates in Prime 9 include the ability for users to create and reuse text styles in the worksheet. This is functionality very familiar to legacy Mathcad users and users of other applications that allow you to create text content. When your worksheet contains a lot of text, you may want to format individual portions of text, text regions, or multiple text regions more efficiently. In Prime 9, you can use and create text styles that help you do that. By default, Prime 9 contains several useful text styles. Select text or one or more text regions and apply the text style of your choice to format your selection. Add your own custom text styles. Text style formatting options include font and font size, text formatting such as bold, italic, and underline, text and highlight color, and paragraph settings. You can create the text style from an existing text region in your worksheet if you manually format text that you want to reuse elsewhere. And to enable legacy users to continue editing their worksheets using the legacy default and custom text styles, on conversion, those will be added to the text style editor in Mathcad Prime 9. In Prime 9, you can also now format any region in your worksheet to include an internal link tag. This tag allows you to add a link from text elsewhere in your worksheet to that internal link tag region. In this way, you can add links to your worksheet that you can use to jump to anywhere else in your worksheet. For example, if you want to refer to an equation later on in your worksheet, you can add an internal link tag to that equation math region, and on the text you want to use to refer to it, add a link that references that internal link tag. Clicking on that text now immediately scrolls the worksheet to that equation. This is a really useful functionality for making worksheet content easier to navigate. The gradient operator has been added to Prime 9. This is one of the last math operators that was missing from our math functionality. The gradient operator returns the gradient of a scalar function, shown in Mathcad as a vector of partial derivatives with respect to each variable in the function definition. The gradient of such a function can be evaluated both numerically and symbolically, and it can be inserted from the calculus section of the operators menu or by using its keyboard shortcut. Calculating the gradient of scalar functions is a useful tool for analyzing surfaces, fitting data to model functions, edge detection, algorithm development, and other application areas related to basic laws of physics. Let's take a quick look at a short demo of these updates. The gradient operator can be accessed from the calculus section of the operators menu or by using its keyboard shortcut. When used, it creates a collection of partial derivatives of a function and has a wide range of uses, including assessing directional movement, curve fitting, and assessing functions' slopes with respect to different variables. The text styles browser can be found on the text formatting tab and displays default text styles and any custom text styles you add. Each text style is defined by a group of formatting options, which include name, font style and size, bold, italic, underline, color, and highlight, and paragraph options. Mathcad consists of a worksheet of individual regions, so we made sure in Prime 9 that text styles can be applied to specific text selections, individual text regions, and multiple text regions. You can add as many custom text styles as you wish, and creating them is easy. Once you select a custom text style's formatting options and name it, it gets added to the style browser. You can then use it in the same way as any of the default text styles supplied with the application. So in this case, we select two regions and we apply that custom text style to them. The UI for internal links is located with the hyperlink commands on the text formatting tab, as internal links utilize some of the existing hyperlink functionality. To tag a region as the destination of an internal link, you select the region and using the tag UI, provide it a relevant text identifier. You can select any region as the destination of an internal link, so you can link to math or text or any other type of region like plots or solve blocks where it makes navigation of the worksheet easier. Once that is done, you can use that identifier in the hyperlink definition of selected text, prefacing it with the hash character. That hash character denotes the text string as an internal tag. In this way, you can create links from text to anywhere else in your worksheet, including multiple links to the same tag region. In this example, we've set up links from each of the text strings in this text region at the start of the worksheet to relevant regions on other pages, effectively creating a simple table of contents for this worksheet. Since we included the new symbolic engine in Mathcad Prime, it's easily demonstrable how much of a benefit it's been to have the level of control we now have over symbolic calculations. Once again, this release brings several enhancements, some of which were driven from customer feedback over the years, some of which are new and were made possible with our ability to use and modify the engine we now have. Prime 9 adds symbolic solving of ordinary differential equations using the solve keyword and setting the modifier as the function's name or as a function with an argument. First order ODEs are fully supported, as are some higher order ODEs. Specific use cases include the ability to solve a system of ODEs and ODEs with boundary conditions. Prime 9 includes the ability to symbolically solve the find function in a solve block. You can use this to evaluate a symbolic solution of an equation or a system of equations. You can assign the result of the symbolic find to either a variable or a function call and use that variable or function in your worksheet. Like with existing variable assumptions, in Prime 9 you can now make assumptions about the domain of a function in a symbolic expression using the assume symbolic keyword. For example, you can restrict a function so it is a real valued function. All the modifiers that apply to variables also apply to functions. In Prime 9, you can now symbolically evaluate definite integrals with complex boundaries. And to continue growing the capabilities of the already powerful symbolic engine by responding to customer feedback on new use cases and different input conditions for existing functionality, Prime 9 includes improvements in use and performance of a number of symbolic calculus operators, keywords, and functions. Finally, there are two new types of symbolic integral function in Prime 9, elliptic integral functions and logarithmic integral functions. Elliptic integral functions are useful in many computational problems, and there are 6 elliptic integral functions in Mathcad Prime, the complete and incomplete forms for the first, second, and third kind. Logarithmic integral functions are special functions and can be used for solving certain problems in physics and number theory. And in Prime 9, you can insert and use both the logarithmic integral and offset logarithmic integral functions. The numeric engine in Mathcad Prime is a mature calculation engine, yet each release we make updates to ensure we stay up to date with suggestions from customers and from our own internal development team. In Prime 9, we've added the ability to solve partial differential equations using the PDESolve function in a solve block. This new PDESolve function returns a function or vector of functions that solves a one-dimensional nonlinear PDE or system of PDEs with n independent equality constraints for an nth order differential equation. To indicate a partial derivative within the solve block, you can use either subscript notation or the partial derivative operator. And as we do with the symbolic engine, the team continues to react to customer feedback to enhance existing functionality. And in this release, there are several updates to numeric functions driven by customer engagement. So let's take a look at a short demo of some of these updates. Here we have 3 balanced equations that describe the currents entering and exiting each node of a circuit. We'll put these 3 equations into a solve block and use the find function symbolically to find a symbolic solution for the voltages at each node in terms of the 4 resistors in the circuit. Looking at the symbolic solution, we have visibility and transparency into the solution theory. We can assign the symbolic solution to a function of the 4 resistors, and that function is visible and available to be called outside the solve block later on in the worksheet. If results from the function don't look as expected, we can always go back to the solve block and take a closer look into the solution, given the transparency provided by the symbolic find functionality. This worksheet example shows how the partial differential equation function can be used to solve some second-order partial differential equations. The PDESolve function is easily set up within a solve block. It requires initial and boundary conditions, and derivatives in the solve block can be indicated using the partial derivative operator or subscript notation. In this particular example, the PDESolve function is used to solve the wave equation, and after assigning the result to variables, we can plot the amplitude of wave at position x and time t. There are 6 new elliptic functions found in the symbolic function category on the Functions tab, and these can be inserted into the worksheet from the function browser or typed in directly. The 2 new logarithmic functions are found in the same function category, and between these and the elliptic functions expand the breadth of mathematical problems you can now calculate symbolically in Mathcad. You can symbolically evaluate ordinary differential equations or system of ODEs for first-order ODEs or higher-order ODEs that can be reduced to first order. You can make assumptions on functions and not just variables using the assume keyword in a symbolic evaluation. For example, f of x is real or f of x is greater than 0. And you can define integrals with complex limits, which, like the rest of these updates, continues to expand the options you have when solving complex calculation problems in Mathcad. Customers can sometimes spend hours at a time in Mathcad. Making day-to-day use of Mathcad an easy experience is an important goal and one we continue to work on. We get feedback from customers as well as internal feedback here at PTC from developers and subject matter experts. And each release we try to add some of the suggested usability updates. In Prime 9, we've added a custom color picker to most formatting options in the UI where color is chosen, including math content color and highlight and text content color and highlight. The custom color picker allows you to define precisely the color you want to use using a simple UI that should be familiar to users of other applications with this formatting option. When your Mathcad worksheet consists of many pages, it's not always easy to get to where you want to go in the worksheet to calculate or edit. The new Go To page option allows you to quickly scroll to any page. The page number indicator in the bottom left corner of the worksheet is now an editable field you can click on and specify the page you want to view. Instead of clicking there from the worksheet, you can use the keyboard shortcut to move to edit the page number. This makes it much easier to navigate the worksheet. Another update that helps with that, small as it is a new current page indicator. When you scroll the worksheet, you can now see what page you're viewing. Again, for larger worksheets, this can be very useful. The last update I want to highlight is functionality that legacy Mathcad users will be very pleased, I hope, to see back in Mathcad, that all users will find extremely useful and is something that I'm finding makes creating worksheets much easier. There are 2 main types of descriptive content in Mathcad, math and text. When you insert content into the worksheet limbo in Mathcad, that content is assumed to be math, so a math region is used. In Prime 9, after typing a string in limbo, if you then press the space bar, the region converts to a text box, as the assumption is the intention is for that content to be text. And this makes adding text to your worksheet much easier. So here's another demo highlighting some of those usability updates. So in Mathcad Prime, there are a number of items that can have their color formatting changed, including math color and highlight and text color and highlight. For all these instances, Prime 9 adds a More Colors option that opens the custom color picker, allowing you to expand the color choice for the item you're formatting. The custom color picker includes formatting using both RGB and HSL models. And using RGB as an example, you can select a color directly on the color palette by adjusting the formatting option sliders or by typing directly in the formatting option fields. And in this way, you can choose the precise color you want to use for your selection. In this particular case, we're choosing a color with color palette, and then we're going to apply that to this selection. The current page indicator is a small feature, but is very useful in large worksheets to help you understand which page is being viewed relative to the total length of the worksheet. When you scroll the worksheet, the indicator shows in the top right of the page view and displays the current page you're viewing, even if the cursor is anchored on a different page. Another new feature that helps you navigate the worksheet is the go-to page functionality. The page number in the bottom left of the application window is now editable and can be accessed either by clicking on it or by using the keyboard shortcut. When editing the page number, simply type the page you wish to see, and the worksheet will immediately scroll to it. When you find the page you want to work with, you can click in it to complete the go-to page process. This eliminates tedious scrolling, especially in lengthy worksheets. The final usability update I want to demo is the math to text region conversion, which makes it possible to write text directly in a worksheet without having to insert a text region first. When you type in a Mathcad worksheet, the content is assumed to be math, so a math region is automatically inserted. Text regions can be manually inserted via the ribbon or keyboard shortcut. In Prime 9 now, when you start typing in a worksheet, when you press space after a single text string, we assume you're writing text, and so convert it to a text region, making that common content creation action just a little bit easier. Now, as it is for each release, everything we put in the product is driven by customer feedback. Through our subject matter experts, internal sales, resellers, the PTC Mathcad community idea site, and even direct to me, we listen to requests for any new functionality or enhancements to existing functionality. And those requests are used to inform us on what we need to prioritize for the next and upcoming releases. The items we've added in each release were added at the time because those were then the most requested areas of functionality. That's how we need to continue to move forward when structuring the content for each new release. The next few releases will continue to focus on these gap-fill customer requests. I'm in the process of planning the next few releases with focus on the next two, and these are some of the areas of functionality we're considering. If what you want isn't here, it's not because we're not going to implement it at some point, and it's not even that it won't be in one of the next few releases. Prioritization is a living process and changes depending on feedback. Scripted controls at the end of this slide is currently at the top of our list of requested items. Now, this is an extremely large and complex area of functionality that has some important security considerations, but we've already started to discuss with subject matter experts and customers on just how we provide the scripting functionality that customers require. As usual, we have a mix of documentation, calculation, productivity, and usability functionality to choose from. Allowing users to define a custom unit system is very useful. Autosave is something we've been looking to get into a release for a while. Subscripts and superscripts in text would complete our text region formatting story. And as usual, we'll continue to work on symbolic and numeric engine enhancements. One other area of focus for Prime 10 is performance. There are areas of the product we can make Mathcad more responsive, and we'll be investigating ways to do that that we can introduce in Prime 10. Development has already started on Prime 10, and I hope we can provide more information on upcoming functionality at other Mathcad webinars we'll have later this year. So again, many thanks for letting me talk to you today and show you what new functionality Mathcad Prime 9 brings you. I'm always happy to talk about the product and what we're doing with it, and I hope you can try it out soon. Back to you, David.
Thank you, Andy, for that brilliant presentation. And now we can begin our live Q&A. Again, this part of the webinar is also being recorded, and we will try to answer as many questions as we can in like the 20 minutes or so that we have available. Andy, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Can you hear me? Can you still see my screen?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Like a Mathcad, but yeah. So first question, and we're getting a lot of questions in the chat now, so it's hard to pick a real first question, but I guess first question will be this one. Since a lot of long-time users still like and rely on Mathcad 15, why don't you continue to support it?
So that's That's a good question. It's something that we discussed back at the end of 2021. This was one of the reasons at the end of SAL. It's not that we don't want to support Mathcad 15 necessarily, although at some point, obviously, there had to be a transition. As we explained in the communication throughout 2021, there's a third-party component in Mathcad 15 that we were not legally allowed to distribute after the end of that year. We had to go through preparations to run through the end of sale process that we did. So it's actually a legal requirement. It's not that we necessarily wanted to end it when we did. Although again, the whole point of Mathcad Prime is to develop a product that's the next generation after legacy Mathcad. But there's this third party component that legally we're no longer able to distribute. So we can't continue to distribute or sell the product after the end of 2021.
All right. Related to those, we got questions on how am I able to convert Mathcad 11 sheets to Mathcad Prime 9? And also, are there any enhancements in the converter for Mathcad Prime 9?
So we have the legacy converter, the legacy worksheet converter in Mathcad. You can find that in the result in the UI. You can actually open it from within Mathcad, and you select a legacy Mathcad worksheet, and you can actually convert worksheets going back to quite early versions of Mathcad, and you can convert that to Prime. Now, when you talk about converter enhancements, it's the converter itself is just a tool that takes the legacy worksheet and then reformats it, creates a new version of that in the new format that we use for Mathcad Prime. What makes conversion fidelity better is the functionality that we add to each release that kind of replaces functionality that you had in that legacy worksheet. So, for example, in Prime 9, because we added text styles, because we added gradient operator, because we added PDESolve. If you use those things in legacy versions of Mathcad, when you convert now, those things will be converted to in your Mathcad Prime worksheet. And that's how we improve the fidelity of conversion. We need to continue to put back in the product those gap fill functionality items that you use in worksheets in legacy versions to make sure when you convert to Prime that the worksheet is ready to use immediately rather than needing maybe some rework.
And the follow-up to that, was the converter improved in Prime 9 versus Prime 8?
Yeah, so again, as I just mentioned, the improvement in the conversion process comes from the functionality that we actually put in the product. And there are a number of functionalities in Prime 9 that bring back into the product functionalities that users were used to in the legacy version, and that means the fidelity of conversion will be better. Now, making enhancements to the converter itself is something we can do, but they're more process enhancements. So for example, one of the things we're looking at in an upcoming release, hopefully the next one, will be the ability to open the converted worksheet from the converter UI itself. Right now, you need to go to the file system, but once you've added it and converted it, I want people to be able to click on that converter UI and open the worksheet in Prime immediately. And there are some other improvements that we could make in that converter just to make the process of conversion easier.
Okay, next question. Is there a search function in Mathcad Prime 9? Because there was one in Mathcad 15, and I don't know where to find it.
So when we say search function, if we mean go to the page, if we mean find a page, that's in Prime 9. That was one of the new pieces of functionality we added. So you can find a page. If you mean a find, so you can find content, that's been in the product for a long time. We want to make enhancements to that. We're looking at making enhancements to that in 10. Right now, you can search for an identifier, you can search for a subscript of an identifier, and you can replace those two things. But I want us to be able to search and replace whole identifiers with subscripts. The limiting factor there is that means enabling the search and find fields to represent math, because an identifier with a subscript is part of our equation control. But we're looking at a way to do that would enable you to find and replace identifiers with subscripts. So there are enhancements that we can and will be continuing to make for the search, find, replace process in Prime.
Okay. Related to the text styles that you mentioned, do the updates for text styles include super and subscript?
No, actually, that's a good question. Although I think what we're really talking about is super and subscript in text itself. So, there's the way before Prime 9 came out, you would format text in a Mathcad worksheet was with the text formatting options on the text formatting tab, right? So you're manually changing the text format of either individual text selections or text regions, or if you put the caret, the crosshair in the worksheet in the back, in limbo we call it, and change that, then any text you put in from that point on will take on the formatting that you selected. And again, that's a little bit different. Sorry, it's not a little bit different. It's text styles is a different way of formatting text. Now that's added in 9. You can do the same thing that you do with individual text formatting, but then you can save that format and then you can apply that to different text selections, text boxes, or multiple text boxes. And again, that's something that's different from legacy Mathcad, where you can only apply text formatting to text selections. Being able to apply text formatting, text style formatting to region level or multiple regions just makes it a lot easier to format the worksheet. There's also a lot of a work that needs to go into how those things interact now, because you're actually doing region level work. Subscripts and superscripts is a text formatting option. It's not been in Prime before now. We've just started a proof of concept. I want to get it in the next release. We don't get it for free in the text control we use in Mathcad. We're developing it ourselves. I hope to see a proof of concept of that soon, and then we can make the decision to go ahead to put that in 10. But that's one of the things that's actually close to the top of my list for the next things that need to go in the product. It's one of the last text formatting options outside things like strike through, which is used much less. But it's one of the last text formatting options we need, and we do need it, right? I mean, it's past time it needs to go in the product. So 10 is the target for me for subscripts and superscripts, and that actually kind of dovetails nicely with the work we're going to be doing for find and replace. Right, we have subscripts and superscripts from a math perspective in math regions. I want to be able to search and replace subscripts, search and replace identifiers with subscripts. That's important because a lot of variables have subscripts, and you want to represent those variables with subscripts in text as well. You can do it now using a math region in a text region, but it's just much easier to do it with natively in the text region. So yeah, David, that's something that I'm hoping to see a proof of concept of that soon, and if all goes well, that's going to be in the.
Okay, we're getting a lot of questions about graphing. Were there improvements to graphs in Prime 9? Will there be improvements to graphs in future iterations of Prime? Why are there 2 separate ways to make plots? What's the story with that?
Yeah, so we have some large projects to look at. One of them is scripted controls, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later. And one of those is plotting, right? We have really good native plots in Mathcad Prime that cover 2D, 3D contour plots. But in Prime 5, I think it was, we introduced the chart app, which introduced a different way of visualizing 2D data that has a lot more formatting options with it. And I think still, I've probably done a bad job as a PM of making sure that's advertised to customers, right? It's a good way of representing 2D data in the worksheet. But that's not the end of the story, right? We have enhancements that we want to do for 3D plots. We have enhancements that we want to do for the the visual precision or the way the plots look. There's a certain level of presentation standard that we want to track the requirements of and make sure we cover. So there is going to be a lot of plot work that will be done in future releases. Now, what release, I'm not sure. This is a lot of work that we have to align between the two ways you can do plots. And when I say two ways, we have the chart app, which is the the application that allows you to create 2D plot visualization, and we have the so-called native plots within the product that allow you to do kind of a greater set of plot types. So yeah, we've started thinking what's the roadmap for plots in general. I understand, especially from the PTC Mathcad idea site on the community, PTC community, and from feedback from our subject matter experts and directly to me, it's important, right? Mathcad is a tool to use to document your math and get a result, right? I mean, ultimately, what you want to do is get a number you can plug into something downstream. You're creating a product, you're creating a system, you're using Mathcad to define the calculations for that. But plots are important for that. You need to visualize the data. There may be, it's probably the best way in many cases to understand exactly what the data is doing. So it is an important part of the product. There will be work being done on it. It's a big job. I'll probably start some kind of working group at some point in the future to go through what our options are. So yes, it is on the roadmap.
Working groups are exciting, Andy. Reminder, we have like 8 minutes left of the presentation because we have a hard stop at 45 minutes in. So we got lots of questions about table of contents because they see tags, they see links, they see text styles. It seems like it should be straightforward to make an automatically generated table of contents. So what's the plan on that?
Yeah, and it is a next step, right? It's not something I think we've ever had in the product before, even in legacy versions. That there's been no automatic table of content generation tool, and we all know from other content management applications that the way you want to do it is set up tags in a worksheet and at somewhere insert a table of contents region and update it, right, with the page numbers and the titles of those regions that you select to be part of it. It's not trivial work, right? Right now we have the ability to insert a text region, and within that text region set up different links to internal tags. You can set up multiple text regions, and inside each of them set up internal links to different tags within the worksheet. What you want to be able to do is take a text style or take a text region or any region later in the worksheet and assign it a tag that an automated table of contents system can identify as something to be pulled into its creation. So there's a UI challenge there. But yeah, that was the point of doing it in this order, right? We've introduced text styles. We introduced links in 7, I think it was. We introduced internal tags. This is leading us towards being able to provide an automated table of contents functionality in the product to make that easier. The balance we have to make is, I want to work on that because I think that's going to be great content. Oh, you also want to work on the stuff that makes conversion fidelity better, right? So we need to make sure that customers that we really need to focus on, that we want to and they want to use Prime. We want to make sure that the functionality that we had in the legacy version is there for them. But yeah, we're doing it in this order. We have the components there. That's the logical next step.
Okay, we're running out of time. We have far more questions than we can possibly answer. So next question, is it possible to highlight regions or to show borders as in Mathcad 15?
Yeah, so you can show a border on the header, footer, and the worksheet region, the worksheet kind of page itself. You can highlight regions using text or math highlighting, and that'll highlight the region. But what I think you really want is some kind of right-click menu option on each region that says show border or highlight region, or something to make specific regions pop, something to bring focus to specific regions. And again, we don't do specifically region borders right now. Like I said, you can highlight regions, whether they're math or text regions, just by selecting them and choosing the highlight color from math or text formatting. And that's a good way of doing it. But I think rolling that into something that also allows you to perform some other functionality on regions themselves, just to manipulate how they look in the worksheet, like adding a border to the region, maybe changing the color of the border, maybe changing the thickness of the border. That would be something that I would like to do. And you know, on our list of things to do in the product, that's there. Such as conditional formatting? So conditional formatting is something that we want to put in through controls. And so again, that's a functionality that, whether it's pulled out of that and done in a specific and different way, or whether we roll that into how we work on controls, having inputs and outputs to controls and being able to define the formatting through script. Again, that is, I mean, conditional formatting, especially being able to turn like a region red or green, depending on what its value is. Yeah, that's high up there. We're looking at it in context of scripting, but we're also looking at it in context of, can we have just some kind of separate functionality to allow users to do that?
All right, thank you, Andy. We got some questions, and this is important. You know, one person asked, we use Prime 7 now, can we jump to 9 easily? Another person asked, if we purchase Prime 8, can we upgrade to Prime 9 for free? Do you have any answers to those?
Yeah, so I mean, PTC sells subscription licenses, and if you're active on subscription, when a new version of the software comes out, you're entitled to download it and license it. So if you're using 7 and you're on subscription, or using 8 and you're on subscription, now Prime 9 is out. You can go to the e-support page for PTC and download the install media for 9. And once it's installed, you can go to the license management tool and request your new license that will include Prime 9 entitlement. So it's pretty easy to upgrade to the latest version. And again, it's also pretty easy process-wise to move. You can open your old worksheets, your worksheets created in 7 and 8 in 9, right? The UI will change when we add new items to it. But if you want to do nothing but continue using the same worksheet that created in 7, you can do that in 9, and there's no real learning curve. Once you have it there, the learning curve is what's new in Prime. How can I augment my worksheet with this new content? So it's pretty easy to move to the latest version if you're on subscription.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. Let's see if you can answer this quickly. We got a bunch of questions about exporting hyperlinks, whether they're external, internal, when you save as a PDF. Is that something Mathcad Prime can do? And if not, will it?
Yeah, so that is nice functionality, right? I don't think it's something we did in the legacy version. It is something I think that, so hyperlinks themselves, external links is one thing. Internal links is another, because internal links is based upon the format of a Mathcad worksheet itself. So to be able to translate that to another saved format isn't straightforward. But we had a development project to look at externalizing hyperlinks in PDF. I'm still looking at that to work out if that's something that is more important to try and provide over some of the other gap fill stuff. So it is something we're considering. It is something we looked at during the Prime 9 development to understand, well, what are the barriers here to it? And what could we do in future releases to try and put this in? But yeah, I think there's two things there. One is the hyperlinks themselves, and one is internal links.
Okay. Thank you for that, Andy. And we're rapidly approaching the 45-minute point, so that was the last question. So thank you again to everyone who participated in Q&A, and sorry if we did not get your question. Thank you to Andy for your time today. Any last thoughts? Besides, the recording of this and replay will be available on mathcad.com later this week.
Yeah, I really appreciate everybody turning up to this. We're doing our best to put as much really cool and interesting content in each release. We have a lot of good stuff coming up in 10. I've seen some great proof of concepts. So I'm looking forward to talking about that with people over the coming months.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.